No. When my physique started decline a while ago. I mean, remember the whole video, like why Conor Murphy lost his gains in his hair? I mean, my physique, the moment, like,
Who did you wrong like that?
More plates, more dates, I believe.
More plates, more dates, bro.
Yeah,
What's up, guys? Derek, moreplatesmoredates.com. Today we are going to be reacting to, you know what? We're going to be reacting to the Conor Murphy admits he's not natural to Kenny KO video. So in this video, it's the uncut part of the Kenny KO video, so it's going to be some of the same shit that you saw in the last video. A lot of my same commentary is going to be identical, to be honest, especially the finasteride part, because they're obviously going to play that again, and it's going to be the same shit. So I will probably just defer you to my other video when we get to that section. But yeah, let me double check it on my speed set too high. Actually, fuck it, let's put to 1.25 and I will just talk faster. So anyways, let's get into it. Dude, what's funny too is off the bat, this is like a screen recording of whoever's screen is, you know, viewing this to edit the video, and you can tell it's definitely actually Conor's because he has subscribed to Kenny KO. Like if you had your own channel, it would not be subscribed to yourself. And on the right hand side, the the suggested videos I thought was interesting. So it has, you know, a Greg Doucette video about Conor Murphy. Then it has a Kenny KO mix, presumably because he's on the, you know, Kenny KO video. And then he has two More Plates, More Dates videos. I was surprised. I was like, shit, this guy actually probably watches a fair amount of my stuff if he has two videos poking out here. Or maybe he just saw more recently, so that's why they're being suggested, because he, you know, watched my last video. I don't really know. I've done a couple videos about him, including the, you know, getting a hair transplant without anesthetic, some of the hair loss misinformation in it. And then the most recent, you know, Kenny KO video talking about his natural status, obviously, which I don't know if he would have done that anyways if I didn't sort of like, I don't know, encourage him to, you know, move forward with it. Because obviously my video came before any of the shit was, you know, spoken about. I was just saying like, well, you're so enlightened, why not open up about that shit? Why has it been a secret for so long? Like, why don't you just, you know, come out and say it now that you don't care? I don't know, I'm just interested that it didn't come out sooner, that I had to actually make a video to kind of instigate it. So anyways, and the last way I knew it was definitely Conor's screen is because it says, this Vsauce video is it okay to touch Mars? And then he has a meditative mix here, and then some sort of 6-hour,
I would say Conor Murphy
concentration thing. So it's definitely Conor's YouTube.
claims natural. He's only 22.4. I would say he is natural. He gets my approval.
You know what's crazy is listening to Kenny's voice in that intro. This is like his Natty or Not he made in 2017, and how boring and like horrible and unenthusiastic he sounds. But if you go watch any of our old shit, like not Conor has always been like super high energy and whatnot, but if you go watch like some of my old shit, same thing, dude. Just like, what's up guys, it's Derek. Today we're going to talk about, like, it's just weird how you just get better and better at talking to the camera, making it, you know, sounding more relatable, sounding more humorous, sounding, you know, just actually interesting in general. Whereas back in the day, it's like, even if you had the same level of like social prowess in real life, talking to even girls randomly, for some reason when you sit in front of a camera, it's not the same. So it's just funny because Kenny definitely had the same thing at the start of his videos that I had.
Kenny, I have something I have to confess to you. I might not be natural.
Okay, so we're getting into the part that we already did in the last video, so maybe I'll skip around a bit. But basically he goes on to talk about here how, you know, being natty or not is a spectrum from, it should be ranked from like 1 to 10. However, his 1 to 10 spectrum is obviously not the same as every single fucking person watching this video, including myself, where you would consider natural being you literally eat whole foods and like fucking nothing else, and 10 being you're on fucking tren, test, masteron, GH, insulin, the whole fucking clusterfuck of everything. So, and you know, even that kind of thing, even he doesn't talk about GH or insulin in this video, but I mean like even insulin, stuff like this, like his arguments are, if you have like literally we'll get into the semantics of like, oh, if it's a bioidentical compound, then is it really unnatural? Oh, if you have a multivitamin, you would never get this quantity in food before. It's hyper concentrated in this pill. So therefore, this is more unnatural than the fucking blank that I took, which is like an actual synthetic fucking compound. Or, you know, you can't get this amount of ashwagandha in nature. So therefore, this is, okay, I'll just let him get to it because I think that part wasn't in the last video too. So I'll jump around a bit to not be too redundant.
And it will essentially show this point.
Connor, natural, trend test every compound you can possibly take. Where does Connor Murphy lie?
I would say somewhere around here, but we'll discuss this and see.
So I just said this is absolute natty, so you're telling me you have not been a lifelong natty.
This doesn't exist. And I'll show you why. It simply doesn't exist.
So instead of saying I have not been a lifelong natty, he says this doesn't exist. Shut the fuck up, Kenny. Let me fucking do my thing and try and confuse the shit out of you guys.
The spectrum. There is no absolute natural or absolute not natural.
But wouldn't there have to be like
So
in between?
It's all relative, right? And that's it. So let's start.
As my expert wants to know, is there any anabolic compound? Prohormones, SARMs, anabolic.
Okay, so here he says, okay, I'm gonna give you 3 compounds. Let's start off with the least intense one. And he says finasteride, and then he says it actually makes your physique worse. So therefore, but because it inhibits DHT through a synthetic means of inhibiting the enzyme, therefore it is unnatural because you're significantly manipulating a hormone in your body, which is an unnatural process. I agree, it's an unnatural process, and by definition that would make you unnatural, but obviously this context with this spectrum is in a performance enhancing context, like 1 to 10, what's the most intense shit you can use for muscle growth, not what's the most intense thing you can do for fucking hair loss prevention, you know? So anyways, he claims misinformedly, if that's even a word, he claims incorrectly that finasteride makes your physique worse. He says that when you inhibit DHT, you actually end up with a worse physique. And then he goes on to elaborate how he used this partially to justify the deployment of the actual PEDs that he was using, which is kind of an interesting, a little interesting tangent. I wasn't expecting this to go on, which I will, you know, jump forward to in a sec. But if you want to hear the elaboration on why finasteride won't make you lose muscle, go watch my video that I did, the last one. I think I did a far more elaborate one in my first post-finasteride syndrome video though, where I literally show an example of 2 pseudohermaphrodites, one, like literally siblings. One has a mutation in the gene that encodes for 5-alpha reductase, so the literal gene that causes you to create 5-alpha reductase enzymes that 5-alpha reduce testosterone to DHT. One of the siblings has a total defect in this gene, consequently resulting in no production of DHT in his, when he would otherwise be going through puberty, which is the time at which you have significant secondary male sexual characteristic development and whatnot, which is literally dictated by your DHT levels. So the higher your DHT levels are, pushing into puberty, like the bigger your dick's probably going to be, the more, you know, pubic hair you're going to get, the more facial hair you're going to get, the more hair loss you're going to get, etc. in general. Now, the difference is these pseudohermaphrodites actually have a higher testosterone level. The reason being is because they don't have that enzyme, the 5-alpha reductase enzyme. So when you have none of that enzyme, you literally have all your, the whatever proportion of testosterone, you know, 10%, whatever it is that wants to try and convert to DHT, and it cannot. So it stays as testosterone. It can't go through this enzymatic process. So it actually ends up with a higher testosterone level and consequently also a higher estrogen level, but it's fairly significant. Like when you have dutasteride inhibition, you're getting like 90 to 99% inhibition. You get a 22% spike in testosterone and estrogen. When you have a mutation in the gene, you literally have no 5AR. Like you're pushing probably in the mid-20s, high 20s for testosterone increase. It's probably similar to dutasteride, might actually be in the low 20s, but anyways, it's a fairly significant increase. Now, is that going to be proportional with your free testosterone increase too? Probably not, especially considering that DHT has such a high binding affinity for SHBG. You have no DHT, so you have way more SHBG that's freely available to fucking gob up testosterone and estrogen. But anyways, the end result is higher testosterone, and interestingly enough, typically these pseudohermaphrodites have more muscle mass than their siblings who don't have the mutations. So even though the siblings end up with normal dicks and don't get micropenises, they are less jacked and have more hair loss than the guys who had no DHT during puberty, but that had that bump in testosterone. So again, anyways, there are tons of studies. That's like a huge, like, that's just more an interesting tidbit and a perfect example of like a guy compared to another guy. And there are several of these to look at, by the way. But if you actually want to see like real clinical hard data showing the effect of 5-alpha reductase inhibition on lean muscle mass and strength, it's very easy to find. Like dutasteride even, which is far more intense than finasteride, does not decrease lean body mass whatsoever. It does not lower your strength. This is proven clinically time and time again. DHT is not a significant driver of muscle growth whatsoever. So to say your physique, you know, got substantially worse when you took finasteride, like it's just placebo. I don't fucking know. Like it's just not, doesn't make any scientific sense. Like maybe if you got some gyno from finasteride and then you like got self-conscious and it discouraged you from fucking going to the gym, you started hating life, so you started eating like shit. Indirectly, maybe you get a worse physique, but it's as a result of your own internal decisions rather than the drug itself. I know that was a long-winded thing, but that blows out that whole part, so we can just skip it.
Trend or some sort of a high dose. Interesting. It's unnatural, I would say, or it's far on the unnatural spectrum, but it doesn't enhance your physique. And so a lot of people would say that you are still natural if you take it. Now, this is an interesting concept because by that same logic...
Yes, a lot of people would say you're natural if you take finasteride, not because it makes your physique worse. In fact, it actually does fucking nothing to your physique. But anyways, they would say it because it's not performance enhancing. You know, like when you say, like the context is clearly in an anabolic agent context. We're not talking about, like, what's the weirdest thing? What's the weirdest unnatural fucking thing you can take? Like, I'm pretty sure if somebody was like, yo, bro, here's this random fucking rock I found outside. Here's this like piece of, I don't know, here's a piece of fucking something from Mars. This is the most unnatural rock you've ever fucking seen. Eat it. Are you gonna say I'm not natty now? Like, no, you're fucking not, dude. You just swallowed a weird rock from like outer space. So it's we're talking about performance enhancing here. Like the stretch in this spectrum is just silliness, obviously.
If you were to take a extreme compound such as tren or some sort of a high dose of test and somehow have a bad reaction, right? Or somehow not run a PCT, or somehow where it hinders your physique in some way, which is obviously possible, okay? You could have a bad reaction to something and it has a negative effect. By the same logic, you would have to say that I'm natural, right?
No, this is, I think I said the same thing in the last video. I was like, no, fucking no, which is my same answer. So I'll skip through the rest of this part, but yeah, like the guy's basically going on to elaborate how if you took tren, but you ate like a dumbass, you slept like a dumbass, you didn't even go to the gym. In fact, you probably lost gains. And then you didn't PCT correctly, and you just fell off the fucking wagon big time and lost all your progress because you're just an idiot who didn't take advantage of the exogenous hormones. You're in fact still natty, even though you took half a gram of tren.
By taking that, right? Because by your definition, it can be an unnatural compound, but as long as it's not performance enhancing, it's still considered natural.
Now, like, I appreciate that he's trying to be like sort of transparent, I guess, but it's just like, I don't get like why he's so motivated to make this as confusing as possible. Like I can't comprehend how he could be sitting here and being like, you know what, I'm gonna try and like mind fuck these guys into thinking if you take tren but don't get results, it's more natural than taking finasteride. Like it's just like the lead up, it's just like it feels like it's trying to prepare our brains for him to get to something extreme that he's used to make it seem like he didn't actually use anything and he's still kind of technically natural. Which is interesting because at the end of the day, the compounds he used, he claims aren't tren and things like that. We're going to get to soon.
First gray area. Okay, does that make sense? That's the first big gray area.
I feel like that's thinking like too far about it. Like,
well, no. Okay. Second compound.
Right.
Okay. This is exciting.
I'm literally so excited.
MK677.
You took a song.
It's not a song.
All right, growth hormone secretagogue. Correct. Correct.
Kenny was so excited that he forgot it was a GH secretagogue, even though he definitely knows the answer to that.
Now, this is interesting, right? So for those of you who don't know, a growth hormone secretagogue is a substance that would be considered fairly high on the unnatural spectrum, but it increases your natural growth hormone.
Correct.
So this is interesting, right? So would you consider that unnatural or not?
Yeah, because you're literally agonizing the ghrelin receptor with a fucking synthetic compound.
I would consider that unnatural because that would be. I mean, you can give your input.
Is this naturally occurring in any form of like vegetable or anything that's
Your
naturally
body
grown?
naturally produces growth hormone, but when you
Right.
take MK677, which is a growth hormone secretagogue, it triggers your pituitary gland to release more growth hormone within the
I
body.
see.
So you're getting excess amount by tricking basically your brain into wanting to release more.
I see.
So he is in fact taking like a chemical drug to release more growth hormone. So I would consider.
Now, I think the better justification for this, besides the fact that it, you know, stimulates your own endogenous production, would be to say that your IGF-1 level in MK is never going to go above the reference range. So technically, you're not super physiological when you're using it. That is more of a justification for it being natural than if you use exogenous GH, where your IGF-1 can go up into the fucking 700s. You know, if you're taking MK, you're not going to push it into acromegaly territory. It's going to stay, you know, high normal. The, you know, keyword being normal there. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it's natural. If I take fucking exogenous testosterone, sure, it's not stimulating my testes to make the test. Rather, I'm injecting it, but I'm still, you know, putting my test up to the top of the reference range via a synthetic means. Now, I get where he's going to come from this, though, because then he talks about ashwagandha and how ashwagandha can increase testosterone, which is like, let's just say hypothetically, you can use some sort of herb or root or extract or whatever the fuck in order to increase your test levels to the high end of the spectrum versus you took exogenous testosterone to do the same thing. Are they comparable? Because technically you're achieving the same number on a piece of paper. No, at the end of the day, it's not, because these are synthetic compounds that are designed to keep your levels sustained as a chronic bleed around the clock. You're not dipping up and down like a standard, you know, diurnal rhythm would otherwise, you know, have you doing. Now with GH secretagogues, you know, there's a bit more of an argument for that in terms of the rhythmic secretions, but still, dude, like, I think it's fairly well understood. I'm pretty sure anyone watching this would not say, you know what, you're still natty if you took MK677. You know, I would get that it would be like, okay, you know, maybe it's a little borderline because it's not that enhancing of a PED. You know, you can significantly enhance intracellular volume a little bit. You get some more leverage in the gym, increase your appetite quite a bit, which can help you eat more food, which is going to help you grow more. You know, there are a lot of advantages potentially from GH secretagogues, but you know, it's not an anabolic steroid that is significantly improving muscle protein synthesis. It's not significantly antagonizing glucocorticoid receptors. Just a blatant line in the sand where I think most people really do know how to wrap their head around like what is unnatural and what is natural. And like, you know, an MK677 GH secretagogue I would not classify as natural.
Yes, it's a natural process within the body, but it's like if you took a testosterone injection, it's not natural because it's exogenous, even though you are now producing it within your own body.
Right, but the exogenous test doesn't make you release natural tests. It actually suppresses natural tests.
I get your debate because the growth hormone secretagogue just tells your body to release more. So naturally your body is releasing more, but it wouldn't have naturally been doing that had you not taken that.
Right, okay, right, but now listen to this point, okay? You guys ready for this? Okay, so by the same logic, I want you to consider ashwagandha.
Okay.
Okay? If you take ashwagandha, especially at large doses, it has been shown to increase testosterone levels, right? So why, and you would probably consider that natural. Now why? Why? Because it's, right, and you would say it's found in nature, okay? Correct. But is it? What if I were to take an ashwagandha supplement that was an extremely concentrated extract? An extract that's so concentrated that it would be impossible for, say, a caveman to find this amount of ashwagandha in nature. Right? And also realize that all of these supplements undergo some sort of processing. There's an unnatural process to every single one of these supplements, right? Yeah. So I would argue by the same logic that a high concentration of ashwagandha is just as unnatural.
Yeah. So he's like, I get what he's saying, and it's not like it's totally unreasonable, but it's like in the context of the question, we can all acknowledge that the process of creating supplements, getting an extract from a plant, are you going to create a DMAA pre-workout with a fucking geranium plant you found at, what's a hardware store that's like around, or a fucking plant store that's, I'm thinking of Rona in Canada, and they have like plants and fucking goddamn like building materials and shit. Anyways, totally irrelevant. I was trying to think of a store that would be in the US that would have fucking geranium plants. But anyways, are you going to get a geranium plant, extract a sufficient amount of DMAA to have a 50 milligram per serving pre-workout with 30 scoops in it? Like, no, you're fucking not, dude. Obviously, are you going to get literally like rip a plant out of the ground and extract a satisfactory amount of any kind of fucking anything to make 99% of the supplements in the market? No, you're not. That's just how it is. So yeah, I acknowledge what he's saying. Anything that is hyper concentrated is designed in a, synthetic way, essentially, or in an unnatural way. However, I think most of us would not consider ashwagandha unnatural, And even if you look at how it actually is going to affect your blood work, any kind of transient increase in your total T is kind of, how potent are test boosters? Like, it's fairly well understood that they're not the most effective supplements. And even if you have a transient increase in your total T, what is your free T doing? Is it even making a difference at the end of the day? Or is it just an impressive little boost in your number for a transient amount of time? Like, are you actually yielding a sufficient performance enhancing advantage out of it? Like, the only utility I get out of ashwagandha personally that I would really, use it for is relaxation. That is the main thing I like it for, stress relief, stuff like that. But for actual performance enhancing testosterone increases, is it going to be a needle mover? Not really, dude. Whereas with MK677, it's literally used in like GH deficient fucking patients. If you have a hypogonadal guy and you give him ashwagandha, is it going to rectify his situation whatsoever? Like, no. So, but again, this is there even a point debating this fucking topic? Like, not really. All of us kind of know MK unnatural, ashwagandha natural, even though it came from a fucking plant.
Stick to
I
not
don't
natty.
I know. He definitely was
He's using his big words, he's using his spirituality to get you.
It's true that like even people who purchase like little supplements like creatine or whatever, like it's making your body do something that's unnatural.
Actually, I would argue that in a sense, multivitamins are unnatural because there's no way that a caveman would have gotten those vitamins in that form, in those isolated forms outside of real food.
So that's like saying, how they used to get GH was from cadavers back in the day. They used to literally get dead bodies and extract GH from them. Now, if I'm a caveman and I go find a dead body and get me some GH, does that mean I'm natural? Because I fucking found some like dead person and got it from them? Versus I found it in, I used recombinant HGH made in a lab? Like, dude, this is just like semantics at the end of the day.
Anything that hasn't already been in your body that your body's not naturally doing is not
So
natty.
what about fake boobs?
Exactly.
Like,
So I feel like natty or not definitely pertains
Honestly,
more to
I don't
obviously the
think I need
anabolic
natty.
world, tests, SARMs, pro-hormones, maybe peptides, potentially a few people know. Now we know MK677, I think most would deem that as unnatural. Is there more on the list?
Yeah, there's more on
Or
the
is
list for
it-
sure.
Okay.
There's more on the list, but yeah, I mean,
Was I
I'm
right
just
with
trying
any
to.
of the guesses?
No. So the last one, this is
I don't believe
the most unnatural, but again, there's a caveat to this one too. So the most unnatural thing that I've ever taken for about 2 weeks, and I actually started this at the exact same time as finasteride, right? Because I knew that, oh dang, I'm going on finasteride, I'm probably going to lose some gains, so I want something to counteract it. For 2 weeks, I took ostarine.
Okay.
For 2 weeks. 2 fucking weeks.
That's a SARM. It's not another.
Ostrich.
Correct. That's ostarine, right? Yeah, that's a SARM. I took it for 2 weeks. Now, here's a caveat. And again, I'm not trying to prove that I'm natural at all in any way. I'm just trying to show you that the natty or not concept is really more of a spectrum than something that's black and white. So when I took ostarine, this was actually the decline of my physique, right? So when I jumped on finasteride, I jumped on ostarine at the same time. And this is the exact moment when I started to lose my gains, right? And I don't know if it was because of the ostarine or if it was because of the finasteride, probably because of the finasteride, right? Or maybe it was because of the lack of PCT, even though most people don't think that you need a PCT on ostarine. I don't know, right? All I know is that when I started ostarine and finasteride, after 2 weeks, I developed some gynecomastia. And in fact, still lingers a little bit with me to this day.
So how would that make sense? Okay, so let's say you take finasteride. Half-life is very short, but to get actual full inhibition of 5-alpha reductase, like 2 weeks is not very long, dude. And ostarine, what's the half-life on that? 24 hours, stable blood serum concentrations after 5 days-ish. Like, the guy has barely used the fucking thing. Is it possible to develop actual gynecomastia after 2 weeks of finasteride use where you have that 15% bump in testosterone and estrogen? And then Osterine, where you're suppressing your testosterone levels, but notably crushing your SHBG very quickly, hence freeing up more testosterone and estrogen that were bound to binding globulins. And because there's way less DHT because you're on the finasteride, that puts you at a like 1 + 1 = 3 scenario in terms of being prone to getting gynecomastia on a SARM concurrently with finasteride. But that would be in the scenario, again, with a guy who has like really poor estrogen metabolism and or low free androgen levels. So like how suppressed did he really get from 2 weeks of this shit? You know, like he would have had to have pretty poor baseline hormone levels to begin with to be put in this position whatsoever. So I'm not saying like what caused this decline in physique too. Well, it certainly wasn't the finasteride. You know, I think the Osterine, if it was actually Osterine, would be the only thing that you could even look at from suppressing your testosterone levels. But again, are you going to lose a significant amount of your gains? Are you going to recover quick? Like, dude, it doesn't take that long for SHBG to recover when you totally get rid of the shit after only 2 weeks. And you haven't been shut down to the extent that would be present with some of the other more intensive SARMs. The half-life is short, so it's going to clear its way out of your system pretty quickly. You're going to get back to your HPTA functioning correctly again within short order. So for me, this seems more like, I don't know. We'll see what he says next.
And so I stopped them. And so I can guarantee you that me taking those two substances, finasteride and Osterine, during that 2-week period, only had a negative effect on my physique, right? And again, at the start, remember when we said if someone takes, like say, finasteride, and I don't know if it was because of the Osterine or if it was because of the...
I'm just listening again to see if he said he came off of Osterine and finasteride after 2 weeks.
The finasteride probably because of the finasteride, right? Or maybe it was because of the lack of PCT, even though most people don't think that you need a PCT on Osterine. I don't know, right? All I know is that when I started Osterine and finasteride, after 2 weeks, I developed some gynecomastia. And in fact, still lingers a little bit with me to this day. And so I stopped them. And so I can guarantee you that me taking those two substances, finasteride and Osterine, during that 2-week period, only had a negative effect on my physique, right? And again, at the start.
Okay, guys, like, I think we all know here how little in 2 weeks anything can happen, you know? I don't know what his Osterine actually was. Maybe it was fucking, who knows, dude? Maybe he took goddamn birth control for all we know. Like, I don't fucking know what was in it. But if it was legitimate Osterine, legitimate finasteride, this makes no sense. This is like, maybe he got depressed and stopped fucking lifting and started eating like shit. But like, nothing would explain this, dude. Like, even Greg Doucette, whose test levels are like, were like, I think they were like double digits, and now they're like low 100s. And he's been at that for like a month and a half. Has he lost a significant amount of muscle yet? Like, no, dude, he hasn't. He will eventually, if he stays off HRT, lose a decent amount, but he's like holding like fucking ridiculously super physiological amounts of muscle mass right now, even months after being like, almost months, I think it's like a month and a half right now or something, after being like literally castrated. Was Connor literally castrated for those 2 weeks? No, he had a little bit of a crash in his DHT. And again, 2 weeks is like nothing, dude. Like, this is the time frame you actually need to see some significant gynecomastia development from something. Like, it's not going to build a permanent lump in 2 fucking weeks. You might get some like symptoms of it progressing and developing, but it's not going to build a fucking lump in 2 weeks. But anyways, and then the Osterine for 2 weeks too. Like, no, none of this really makes sense.
Remember when we said if someone takes, like say, finasteride, something that affects androgens, but in a negative way, we deem that as natural. So by that same logic, we would essentially deem the Osterine as natural. Now you could argue, okay, maybe the Osterine actually helped a little bit and the finasteride just hurt a lot, right?
So his justification here is basically he took Osterine, but it was can't even fucking talk, but it was for just such a short period of time that it wasn't performance enhancing at all. Therefore, he's still natural. You know, that's he's not saying he's natural, but this is like sort of what he's implying. Because why else would you have this elaborate fucking spectrum story about how if something is not performance enhancing, then it's not unnatural, even if it's fucking trend.
But obviously, it's still, you know, a gray area.
So you said that's towards the end. Sorry, go ahead.
Did you change your diet at all?
No, I didn't change.
Change?
No, I didn't change my diet at all. Mm-mm.
Do you feel like you lacked some knowledge when you were taking those?
You know, I feel like
and that could have caused.
well, I feel like I had a fairly ample knowledge at the time. I had the knowledge, but
Were you a fucking idiot when you started this shit? Did you not even know what you were doing?
there's a degree to knowledge that you can't have unless you experience it for yourself. You know, some people react to finasteride positively, some react to it negatively. So I feel like I had all the knowledge that I could have, and I feel like I needed to test it out. And I realized that it affected me in a negative way. You know, that's why I stopped.
So I believe you said towards the end is when you said when your physique started to decline. So I assume that was fairly recent because
No. When my physique started to decline a while ago. I mean, remember the whole video like why Conor Murphy lost his gains and his hair? I mean, my physique, the moment like
Who did you wrong like that?
more plays, more dates, I believe.
more place, more days, bro.
Yeah, I'm just liking that video. I'm gonna
That's
report
fucked
it
up.
too.
The moment that I started to lose my gains from the initial break.
Okay, let's clarify here. The only reason that video was made is because the guy's lying out of his fucking teeth. There's no other reason that would have explained any of this shit. This guy has been claiming natural for fucking like 5 years or some shit. The guy's been parading around on YouTube, you know, blowing up in subs and whatnot, adamantly claiming he's natural multiple times on camera, and we all know he's not, and he knows he's not. So, like, to me, it was justified in my opinion, because the guy, like, that is the reason, dude. He could have actually fixed it too if he, again, he came off the fucking finasteride. Like, the guy should have, you know, done some blood work, done a bit more research. Maybe the chick was right. You didn't have enough knowledge going into it. And that's not to be mean, but it's like, this harsh reaction to these compounds makes no sense. Like, it definitely justified further exploration at the time. And obviously he does care about his hair, but he also cares about, you know, not encountering side effects. So more, you know, care should have been taken to the approach he was taking on his compound selection, the finasteride deployment, blood work around the time where things started going awry. Like, nothing really lines up here.
Physique I had was right after the hair transplant. I took a week off working out and I took finasteride and ostarine, and after that it was just downhill for a long time, and it took a while. I think it really messed up my hormones, dude, like bad. Like, it was probably more finasteride than ostarine, but who knows, it could have been the combination of the two, could have been ostarine. My guess is it's the finasteride.
It's not, dude. Finasteride will not do that. It just doesn't. It just doesn't, dude. Like, there's so much data to back this up too.
It really messed up my hormones to the point where, I mean, my sex drive was lower, and it took a couple years, to be honest, to get fully back to normal. And so that's actually the cause, and I haven't really discussed this before, that is the cause of the decline of my physique.
Okay, one thing that should be noted is genetics are not well understood. Things that cause gene expression, epigenetic changes and whatnot that can modify the way certain things express in your body. Like, you can actually have like a triggering event in your life that then sets off a cascade of events via gene expression that otherwise, you know, they were literally like doing nothing, and then something happens and boom, a bunch of shit starts happening. And I think this is honestly like perhaps tied into hair loss too. Like, we often look at it like this, it's a progressive miniaturization process, which for most people it is, but it seems like in some cases there is some like triggering event that kind of like flicks a switch and starts the process for somebody else, whereas, you know, for years prior they were like unaffected. Again, this is like, you know, all anecdotal, but again, like, you see this in autoimmune disease occurrences all the time. You'll have somebody who's like totally healthy, boom, something fucking happens, traumatic life event, and now all of a sudden they have some sort of crazy autoimmune disorder, and they're dealing with, you know, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, you know, fill in the blank other thing. So for him, is it possible that ostarine or finasteride set off some cascade of events via some epigenetic change that then led to the decline in his physique? I guess it's not out of the realm of consideration, but it's highly unlikely. The likelihood is that finasteride did absolutely nothing to his physique. Ostarine had a minor suppression on his a decent amount of suppression to his SHBG, perhaps to his testosterone levels as well, for a short duration of time until it cleared out of his system within, you know, like fucking 5 days or whatever the full clearance time is. And then he would have been getting back to normal within like relatively short order. Now, did he have a persistent drop in neurosteroid production via, you know, literal post-finasteride syndrome or what? And then that led to this like chain of events where he started having a different look on things mentally, and then started, you know, digging into this, you know, spirituality shit and stuff because he wasn't satisfied with life anymore. Like, I don't fucking know. I've seen some pretty drastic changes with post-finasteride syndrome, but in the majority of cases, they are, you know, rectified via pharmaceutical intervention and knowing how to interpret proper, you know, blood work and analyzing the situation, as well as lifestyle, sleep hygiene, dietary practices, etc. So anyways, what's the likelihood that his physique just deteriorated because of 2 weeks of finasteride and ostarine? Extremely low, to the point that it's nearly unexplainable. I wouldn't write it off entirely, because sure, maybe maybe he didn't even get ostarine. Maybe he got some random fucking chemical that set off some fucking thing that never switched off, you know? Highly unlikely though.
The most unnatural substance I ever took was the beginning of the decline of my physique, ironically.
Now again though, this still doesn't explain why his physique was so much better before all that. You know what I mean? Like to be Natty at his peak, he would have had to basically like castrate himself plus like stop working out for this to like make any fucking sense. You know what I mean? Like he went, well actually, no, that's a bit harsh. Like if I was talking about the context where he's at now, but obviously that's a bit different, where he's not lifting weights the same way he used to be. He's literally doing like, you know, month-long fasts or whatever. But when you look back at his physique, dude, like this is him in 2016, October 3rd, looking like a fucking Chad and a half. Here it is November 7th, looking a lot beefier. Now, and this is kind of like where he started having the Connor Murphy, you know, lost his gains videos that he was putting up. And that's sort of, you know, what spurred me to make mine too. Like the guy's literally talking about how he lost his gains and blah, blah, blah. And like the explanation video of how he lost his gains was like the most ridiculous thing I had ever seen. Like he could have straight up just been like, hey dude, like if he actually believed the story, he should have been like, dude, I took finasteride for 2 weeks in ostarine and this is what happened. Instead, he said, I'm bulking, so you can't really see my abs anymore. Oh, I'm doing this, so then that's why. Oh, the lighting, it makes a huge difference, the lighting.
I've probably gained like 1 to 2% body fat. Like I kind of wanted to bulk. The second thing, man, is lighting. The only way you could really tell like if your abs are like getting better or worse is if you're in the exact same lightings. And then there's also, you know, little things like water retention.
It was like, bro, like dancing around the fucking topic of drug use so much. So anyways, he's come out and opened up about it later. And like, obviously the guy has good natural genetics. Like there's no doubt he can maintain a very muscular and lean physique naturally. You know, I'm certain of that. Like, it's not like this is, a lot of people compared this to his old physique and they're like, oh dude, you look like way worse, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, this is him like literally fucking not eating. So this is him when he's actually trying to maintain his physique, what I believe naturally. And he looks very fucking good. Like there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of this physique. Like this is a top fucking 1% physique easily. It's just the comparison of him trying to maintain the physique. Like there's a reason he had to make a video called Why I Lost My Gains. It's because so many fucking people were asking him about it when he used to look like this and he used to look like this. So like there's a clear difference of, I don't know, 5 to 10 pounds of lean tissue at least between this shot and, you know, these shots where he's like trying to maintain his physique thereafter. And yeah, some angles he's gonna look a lot better than others, and some of them he looks totally fine, dude. Like these are, again, no shade on the physique. Looks fucking great, dude. A lot of guys on gear don't look this good. But again, like you can just see as you scroll down the timeline all the way to the bottom, it's like the physique just gets better and better and better and better until you're down to peak Connor Murphy in 2016 doing his viral videos and shit where he is just peak mass, peak leanness. And we all know this is not just the result of having not been on finasteride and ostarine for 2 weeks. I think that makes no fucking sense, you know what I mean? So anyways, and again, some of this is angles too. Like he does actually look reasonably natural in some of these images, but others it's just like the size difference is blatant, you know what I mean? So anyways, I think that the story still stands that I have, you know? I just don't think that this makes any fucking sense whatsoever.
Right? And that's the most interesting part. And so the growth hormone secretagogue I took later. That was actually the most recent.
I interrupt you, but where in that sequence were you taking the MK677?
That was later. That was when I was in LA. So I did 2 rounds of that, 2 8-week rounds, right? And that was, I believe that was the most useful, right? But again, yeah, that was probably the most useful. I saw the most results on that.
See, what's interesting too is how he used GH secretagogue for 8-week rounds. It's like if you're trying to get the benefits out of growth hormone and IGF-1, like, is this something you use for 8 weeks and then pull it out? Like, no. Like, this is not how you would go about using this either.
A ton, but a little bit, you know? It probably helped a little bit, yeah.
So you definitely underwent some like testosterone suppression,
Absolutely.
Which led to what you were going through. Obviously being DHT blocking, and then on top of that, the suppressive compounds of ostarine.
Right, like the after effects, yeah. Definitely had some.
So you had a better physique when you were natural. Now, when you competed in like your men's physique shows,
Like it actually almost sounds like he was experiencing like a toned down version to some extent of like hardcore post-finasteride syndrome. That's what it sounds like.
back when you were doing your reactions, your pranks, everything like that on YouTube, were you, I mean, I assume 100% natural based on the timeline of how you're
There is no 100% natural because I was taking multivitamins.
All right, not taking the 3 compounds that you listed.
When I was competing, I didn't take any of the 3 compounds.
Okay.
How did you, this is kind of off topic, but how did you feel like with your social media and stuff like that, going through that change of like getting gyno and like, you know what I mean?
No, it was really tough because at the time I was attached to the physique. Luckily, I've cured
that
that
was like
attachment.
kind of what you were like to social media. So how do you feel about
Yeah.
like people who are like, oh, he's doing this now? Like, how does that affect you?
No, I mean now I'm completely liberated, right? I don't have any attachments to anything in the physical world. It's beautiful, right? I'm free. But at the time I was very insecure. I was very attached, and any little change in my physique, obviously, it questioned my sense of self.
Like looking in the mirror, like, oh wow.
So I think a lot of people that are watching could learn from your choice here. Now,
Yeah, so definitely commendable the fact that he was able to get rid of that attachment to having a perfect peaked physique. Because obviously when you're put in a position where you're forced to come off of what you're using in order to maintain peak Connor Murphy, you're in a scenario now where you have to be okay with people commenting on your shit every 2 seconds, being like, dude, what happened? Blah, blah, blah. Which is like, you know, if they're really your fans, they probably shouldn't be doing that to begin with. But at the same time, you know it's coming. And you just have to deal with that for, like, this guy dealt with that for like a year or two before he kind of like became, you know, enlightened version of Connor Murphy. So that's, you know, very impressive that he was able to tolerate that for so long and still be very optimistic and upbeat and positive in his videos and continue to make the same stuff where he's like shirtless in videos where guys are literally overwhelming his comment sections with negativity, and he's still out there banging out content every week. So definitely commend him on that, and the fact that he's been able to get over the insecurity about the physique is amazing. I'm sure a lot of guys in the fitness industry would love to do that too.
I know your spectrum of natty or not could be a multivitamin all the way up to trenbolone.
Let me interrupt. It gets even more complex than
But
that.
so the thing is, within the mindset of Connor Murphy, Dr. Connor Murphy, where did you make the decision, or what made you want to choose to start taking MK677 and Ostarine?
Yeah, I mean the
Was it
Ostarine.
just to combat the finasteride?
Yeah, it was just like, I just kind of wanted to stick to where I was, and then the MK677, I want to test it out.
So this is the thing, is he said he wanted to stick to where he was, and this is where the decline of his physique was. But like, I don't know, man. Like, I wish he had like a date here, because this would make it would elucidate the facts a bit more. Because like, I would speculate that if he was saying he wanted to keep his peak physique, that means he tried it way back in like, I don't fucking know, dude. Like way back in like mid 2017 then. And then he's claiming that since then, he's basically been fucked up the entire time and like slowly losing his gains. Like, he didn't really slowly lose them either. He kind of just like 10 pounds just like fell off, and then he just like maintained that for fucking like a year and a half, then got enlightened, then fasted, then lost another, 10, 15 lean pounds, maybe more than that. So it's not like this was, I don't know, dude. It's suspicious as fuck, dude. So what I said, again, still stands.
From the research I did, it was considered the most healthy compound that I could take that was on the, more towards the unnatural polarity, right? Because all it did was increase natural growth hormone, and it didn't seem to have too many negative effects whatsoever, because I was all about health, right? And I thought, I didn't want to take any hardcore stuff to compromise my health, and I thought that was just a good choice. And I think it was. I felt good on it.
Would you change it if you...
No, I mean, I wouldn't change anything.
The last question I was going to finish on. Do you, at this current moment, or at any moment, have you regretted taking Ostarine or MK677? The finasteride I get, due to the hair loss, it was probably like almost like you were forced to do that if you wanted to keep your hair. So the MK677 and Ostarine, growth hormone secretagogue, and a SARM, do you regret taking those?
Well, I would say that the demons of guilt, shame, and regret all stem from an illusory sense of control, right? A naive sense of control. A sense of control that, simply is an illusion, right? So I can't regret anything because I'm not doing anything. There is no self behind my eyes. There's no entity behind my eyes. There's only a complex collection of thoughts that are intricately woven together to form this illusory self known as the ego, right?
Dude, this chick in the background is like beaking him while he's talking.
collection of thoughts that are intricately woven together to form this elusive.
It's like shaking her fucking head, and you can see her mouth the words "what the fuck" in the background. Like, dude, he's taking the time to do a video with you guys. Like, you can at least be polite while he's fucking talking.
Free self known as the ego, right? That isn't there. There is no me doing anything. Things are just happening, and there is no control, right? And so, no, I can't regret anything, and it's madness to regret anything. It can only lead to suffering, right? So,
like, I wonder if she knew she was in the fucking frame when he was talking.
all I do is accept what is and remain grateful for everything that's happened, because it's led me where I am today. And today I am in complete bliss and liberated. So no, I couldn't possibly have regret for any instance in my life, because every single interaction with everyone, any thought that I've had, any experience has shaped this current experience that I'm having right now. And this is freaking dope.
The final question to end on. 2 piles. In my right hand, I push to you MK677. In my left hand, I push to you as much ayahuasca as you can possibly take. Which one are you taking?
Give me that ayahuasca! Okay, so anyway, yeah, he basically goes on to, he explains how he took MK677 Austrian, Finasteride and Austrian for only 2 weeks, Physique deteriorates for seemingly no reason, takes MK thereafter, experiences some gains on it, but still doesn't get back to his baseline physique, unless I'm fucking up the timeline. But at the end of the day, the likelihood that this story makes any sense, very low, unfortunately for him. So again, at the end of the day, the whole point is that he went for 5 years without telling the truth, you know, which is the only reason why, like, it's great that he's finally telling people. But I mean, it's just, again, sheds light in the whole industry and people that, you know, you look up to and you think, oh, they must be telling the truth. This guy literally had to take ayahuasca and get enlightened in order to be able to tell you that he's not natty. And even when he did it, when he has like no attachment to fucking anything, he was still trying to like skirt around it in some scenario. So again, I think this kind of, again, sheds light on the fitness industry and what you can take away from the, you know, the natty or not, and the people who, you know, adamantly claim they're natural, even when it makes no fucking sense. Now, of course, there are some hyper elite genetic guys who will actually be speculated as unnatural even when they are natural, but they're few and far between. You know, these are, again, hyper elites. Again, though, the fitness industry attracts the hyper elites. That's the guys that make the most money in the industry, because they're the fucking best looking guys, you know, the best physiques, blah, blah, blah. But I think most of us can read between the lines and tell that, you know, one of the top fitness guys ever on like 2.47 million subscribers, a young guy, built up his channel in a couple of years, went for years saying he was natural, has to get enlightened in order to come out about it. What's the likelihood there's a lot of other guys in the closet right now? Very high. So anyways, take from that what you will. Let me know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.com. Follow me on Instagram, at moreplates_moredates. Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts. If you want to support the channel, you can check out anything I'm associated with in the video description below. My TRT clinic. It's all telemedicine from the comfort of your own home. Gorilla Mind, nootropic formulas, Gorilla Mode, pre-workout formulas designed myself from scratch. I recommended lab tests and diagnostics. Check your health and hormones and whatnot. And anything else I'm associated with, it's all in the video description below. Thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.